for more than on the Berlin attack. We now want to turn to Robin Simcox in Washington. He is a terrorism and national security analyst at the Heritage Foundation. Robin, we do appreciate the time. After the attack, in fact, you pointed out that terrorists have targeted markets such as this before. What is the significance then of this particular target?
Well, Josh, they certainly have, and this goes back for some years. In 2000, there was some al-Qaeda trained terrorists who were planning to attack a Christmas market in Strasbourg in France. Then, just a few weeks ago, we saw a 12-year-old German boy, a German Iraqi boy, plant a bomb at a Christmas market in Ludwigshafen, also in Germany. Christmas itself, this time of year, has again been targeted by Islamist terrorists. You may remember the shoe bomber Richard Reed, Christmas time 2001. Umar Farouk Abdul-Muttalib, the underwear bomber from Christmas Day 2009, tried to blow up a plane heading from France to Miami. So they know, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, groups like it know that it's a target-rich environment. There's going to be large amounts of people at things like these Christmas markets, these gatherings, and it's a chance for them to strike and cause chaos, cause carnage, kill people in large amounts of numbers. And I think that's why you got the State Department warning that was issued very recently, because the US government and those it works with in the intelligence community know these are precisely the kind of targets that groups like ISIS want to hit.
We are currently, in fact, watching live pictures right now, Robin, of German Chancellor Angela Merkel there at the scene in Berlin, looking at the damage and the aftermath of the attack. And to that point, Robin, Germany welcomed more than 1 million refugees last year. We did hear Chancellor Merkel say that if the attacker turns out to be a refugee or an asylum seeker, it would be most unfortunate. What do you think the impact would be? Specifically, especially there in Germany, where the Chancellor faces a challenge from a far-right anti-immigrant group?
Well, Chancellor Merkel has been very keen to say, hasn't she, wir schaffen dies, we can do this. This has been the message coming from Chancellor Merkel, that we can take in this large amount of people, primarily from Syria. We can integrate them into German society, and we can make a success of this experiment. I mean, to be frank, it is a bit of an experiment. I think that every time something like this happens, and there has been not just, I mean, at the moment we don't know, of course, the identity of the perpetrator, but there have been several plots that have been foiled in Germany this year by recent refugees to the country. I think it not only has an impact on Germany in terms of making them think, did we make the right decision taking in this amount of people so quickly, but also all the other countries surrounding, and indeed the United States. It's a lot harder to make the argument that countries should take in large amounts of refugees when you see attacks like this and others that have been carried out by refugees in the very recent past. Now, of course, not all refugees are going to carry out these attacks or want to. Of course they're not. It's going to be a small proportion. But when you're taking in such large numbers, even a small proportion can create a very big security problem.
In response, President-elect Donald Trump said in part that terrorists must be eradicated from the face of the earth. I know that you wrote in August that, and I do quote, the U.S. must take the fight to ISIS and al-Qaeda in the Middle East and Africa and be willing to kill or capture its enemies, end quote. That certainly sounds like more boots on the ground.
No, it's not making the point for more boots on the ground. What I was arguing is that America needs a forward-leaning posture on this. It has to take its fight to where these groups are based. It can't purely play defense and a kind of Pax Americana and have the drawbridge up, you know. It has to take the fight to groups like ISIS in Iraq and Syria. It also needs to develop a policy. We've become very good at killing our enemies, and I think a good thing that the US drone program has been so effective. But it also needs to develop a capture policy, because it needs to question and interrogate some of these terrorists in countries like Iraq and Syria, because at the moment we don't really have a policy for that. And world-class intelligence is what's going to be needed to keep people safe here in the US and here in Europe.
Who should be doing that capturing, Robin?
Well, at the moment, there isn't a developed policy. This is part of the problem. America has essentially had to hand over that to local forces, let's say, in Iraq and Syria. But Syria, the local forces are those belonging to Bashar al-Assad. In Iraq, it's some of the militias backed by Iran or Iraqi government forces. Now, I think that there is a lot of problems with that most of all, the most obvious one is that Bashar al-Assad's government is one that we are not going to work with for very understandable reasons. So we don't really have those credible partners on the ground to carry out the interrogation. That means there's a lot of intelligence potentially slipping through the cracks, and that makes it a lot harder to stop these kind of attacks.
Robin Simcox there in Washington. We do appreciate your time and insight today.
Thanks, Josh.